So I realized that was the formula, is never ask people for money, just show the business plan, tell as many people as you can, and the right people self-select.
Yeah.
And so I went crazy with it. Once I realized that if you had a credibility kit before and after, and this is doing single family homes, I was just doing before and afters, pictures. Here's what the property looks like before. Here's what I did afterwards, and here's how much money I made. I raised millions of dollars in a short, within a year. I had about $3 million of capital on the street.
Welcome to the Accelerated Investor Podcast with Josh Cantwell. If you love entrepreneurship and investing in real estate, then you are in the right place. Josh is the CEO of Freeland Ventures Real Estate Private Equity and has personally invested in well over 500 properties all across the country. He's also made hundreds of private lender loans and owns over 1,000 units of apartments. Josh is an expert at raising private money for deals, and he prides himself on never having had a boss in his entire adult life. Josh and his team also mentor investors and entrepreneurs from all over the world. He doesn't dream about doing deals. He actually does them, and so do his listeners and students. Now sit back, listen, learn, and accelerate your business, your life, and your investing with the Accelerated Investor Podcast.
Hey, welcome back to Accelerated Investor. I am so excited to be back with you wherever you're at in the world listening to Accelerated Investor. Just want to say thanks. I'm so grateful and honored to be part of your journey as an entrepreneur, as a real estate investor. Today, I have my new good friend, Corey Peterson, on the line. I say new because although I've known of Corey for a few years, we met officially about a year to 18 months ago at a mastermind event. We talked some about real estate, about apartments and multifamily. We've gotten to know each other over the last year or so, and I'm really excited to have him on Accelerated Investor. He is a multifamily investing expert. He has a portfolio of over $95 million worth of multifamily cash flowing assets. He is the best-selling author of Why the Rich Get Richer, The Secrets to Cash Flowing Apartments, and his brand new book, which is Copy Your Way to Success. I am excited to read that book when I can get the time to jump into it. And the Multifamily Legacy podcast. Corey is an absolute animal. He is known as the Big Kahuna. He's been featured on all different kinds of media outlets. I'm so excited to have you on today, Corey. What is going on, my friend?
What is going on, brother? Super excited to be here, man. This is going to be. Listen, we've missed about 9 times trying to get this podcast together, but because we're both busy. But I'm sure as hell we're glad we're doing it now, brother.
Yes, we are. So, Corey, I would love to know, and I'd love to, especially at the end of this year, going into 2020, I would love to know, what are your big plans for 2020? Like, help us understand. You've already had a tremendous amount of success in multifamily. You're speaking all over the country. You have your own students and mastermind, but you've got to have big plans for next year. So let's start with that. What are you thinking about as far as investments and building your business for next year?
I have one goal next year, and that's called Supplier of Fun.
Supplier of Fun. Nice. What does that mean to you? Tell me more about the Supplier of Fun.
So listen, money does not motivate me at all anymore. Doing deals does not motivate me at all anymore. Even though I'm playing the game, the long game. I love the real estate game. I love multifamily. But I've never, at this point in my life, I don't say, gosh, I've got to go do this or this or this. I just say I want to be on the journey. And whether that's 2 to 3 deals a year, but what motivates me, what drives me, is Supplier of Fun, and what that really looks like. So last year we took all my neighbors to Hawaii, right? And I got to pay, and I got they insisted that they paid for their flights, but I paid for the sweet ass house right on the beach. I paid for all the activities that we did, and I got to supply a lot of fun. And so that's my goal for 2020. Nice. Is to a little more of that, supplier fun. And honestly, business wise, man, we $25-30 million of acquisitions, that's fine. 2 or 3 deals, 2 or 3 projects, could be more, could be less. I mean, whatever, but mainly, man, cash flow is good, dude. And this business is awesome.
It is. Cash flow is king. I've always said to my audience, funding equals freedom, because when you have funding, you can buy the asset, and the asset can pay you forever. And when the asset pays you forever, you can have the fun that you're talking about. So let's just expand on that for a minute, because fun obviously is a big part of your DNA. I've seen the new bike, the new motorcycle that you just bought. You take your neighbors on vacation. You've been amazing places, have an amazing life. What other fun things do you like to do? Tell me about some of the maybe one or two experiences that real estate has allowed you to do. Go places, do new things. What are some of your experiences that stand out?
Like last year we went and watched the Women's World Cup. So we traveled to France and we stayed there for like 3 weeks, and we brought, my wife's sister and her kids. And we just went on trains. And I mean, those are the kind, it gives you experience. I think the reason I do this business is for cash flow. And you said it exactly. And I'll tell the story here in a minute about how I raised my first piece of private money. Mm-hmm. Private money is what has set me free. Out of any skill that I've ever mastered, the one thing that has set me free and actually has allowed me to have a lot more zeros in my, in my financial statement than others that started at the same time is the one little thing, which is to be able to raise a crap ton of private money. In fact, I just went to breakfast this morning and raised $100,000. That was really cool.
Nice. So, that is the one skill, right? Because it is really the other skill of finding deals, which is obviously super important. But anybody can go find deals, talk to brokers, talk directly to sellers, look for off-market deals, pocket listings. But if a broker or a seller is never going to take you serious unless they know that you can close, and you can only close if you have the capital, right?
That's it.
Investors and stuff like that. So going to the Women's World Cup is phenomenal.
I love it. It was great. I mean, we always go to, I go to Hawaii a lot. My name's Big Kahuna for a reason. Listen, if there's a reason to sneeze and go to Hawaii, I'm going to do it. So we're going for New Year's. We're going in April. We're going to go in fall of next year. We're actually looking to buy a house there, on
nice. Absolutely. Love it. So multifamily is your passion today. Let's pivot all the way back to your beginnings.
This is going to be a great story, dude.
Yeah, I'd like to hear it. I know a little bit about it, but not enough. And that's why I definitely wanted to have you on this podcast. I love to use this as a way for me to personally connect with people that I want to connect more and drive a deeper relationship with. And so tell me about your early beginnings. What was it like? Were you coming out of another business? Were you coming out of the corporate world? Were you coming out of single family investing?
Yeah. I was coming out of used cars, bro.
Used cars. All right, that's a new one. Tell me about used cars.
Listen, I barely made it out of high school. About the only thing I was good at was copying, and my teachers didn't like it that much. And I found out when you don't have a degree, a lot of times you have to manage some crap or you sell some crap. And so I sold used cars. And that was what I did. And then I met my girlfriend, now my wife of 17 years. And one day she said, I can't marry a used car salesman. And so then I said, well, how about a restaurant manager? So then I went to managing some stuff. Then she really never saw me. And It was in that lifestyle that, man, I was starting to get fed up with life, and it wasn't panning out the way I had planned, because I had big dreams and goals, and I really wanted to be somebody. And then something magical happened that changed my life forever. My mom was married to this man named Bruce. I call him Bruce Wayne. Okay, he wasn't Batman, but he was loaded, and he had a house. Guess where? In Hawaii. Right.
Right.
And so my mom looks at my girlfriend at the time and me, and she goes, "Hey, honey, would you like to go to Hawaii?" And of course, I'm broke, and are you paying? And if you are, then I'm down. So that's what we did. And so we went to Hawaii, and when I get there, I didn't realize that Bruce had a house right on the beach. And this is in Kauai, the Garden Island, the most beautiful island ever. And I remember Shelly and I waking up early in the morning, and it was on a cove, dude. So we're walking this cove, and then there's a freshwater stream from the mountains above coming in and into the ocean. And we're like, oh my God, this is amazing. And we keep walking around the corner, and then all of a sudden the sun starts to rise. And as the sun's rising and the spray from the waves, Shelly and I stand there hand in hand for about 25 minutes, 30 minutes, and we're just transformed.
Oh, I got my eyes closed. I'm imagining this as we're talking here.
I'm telling you, man, like it was mystical and magical. It's the only thing the way that I can describe it. And I remember opening my eyes and looking over at Bruce's house across the way. And I was like, what does this guy do? Because Bruce had time and money. He had nice cars, fine art, and his phone was not ringing. He did not look or seem busy at all. And so I finally got the courage to ask him, what do you do? Guess what he said? Real estate. And he owns apartments. And now I wish the story got better than that, but it doesn't, because Bruce was kind of a prick, right? He was a grumpy old man.
That's one way to go through life. That's not your path. You're the supplier of fun. You're the supplier of fun. But man, some people are grumpy old men about it, right?
Yeah, and he was just, bitter about like life and stuff. But it doesn't matter. I left the island thinking that Bruce was the big kahuna in my mind. Like, I'd never seen wealth like that, and I watched it firsthand. And he said real estate and apartments, okay? Now, then I read this book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And dude, when I'm reading this thing, all I'm doing is thinking, but that's Bruce. That's what Bruce did. And so at that moment right there, I said, I'm going to be a real estate professional. I'm going to do it. I'm going in. So in 2005, I start my company, 2005, and I name it Kahuna Investments, because I wanted to be the big kahuna just like Bruce.
Nice.
And so I started the journey. And, I started off with no money, no credit. And honestly, book read. And we actually moved to Phoenix, Arizona. It's where I live now, Phoenix, Arizona. And at the time, I was a financial advisor. When I finally smartened up, I actually realized you could pass a test. It's the hardest test I ever studied for. And you can become a financial advisor. They hired me. Like, I can't believe they hired me. So I passed that test with a 73. You need a 70 to pass. It was like, great.
You got two more questions right than you needed.
Yeah. But man, I got the best education from one of the best trainers in the world, which was Edward Jones. They're known in the industry as being one of the best financial advisor training. And really, I learned about money. I learned about stocks, bonds, mutual funds, how to talk about money, where to find money, how to approach money, how to put myself in positions with money. And it was a great, great experience until the market crashed.
Yeah.
And so I actually kind of put my real estate dreams on hold, because I bought like 2 or 3 rental properties, but I wasn't going full time. And then I was like, and I got becoming a financial advisor, so I kind of changed my dreams. Well, when the market crashed, man, I had grown men and women that I had moved lots of money for them and placed their retirement money, and that was gone. And listen, I realized I had no control.
No control.
And
Corey, I can totally connect with you on this, because I did the same thing. I don't know if you knew this, but I was a financial advisor when I graduated from college. I finished up my senior year of college football.
I didn't know this.
And I went and got my Series 6 and 63 and my life and health license, and I got an internship with Northwestern Mutual. And I was a financial advisor from 1997 till 2004, almost the same exact time as you. And I got that same education, man, dealing with clients that were 2 or 3 times older than me and managing money as a young 20-something-year-old, and seeing people in 2001, I saw that whole bubble burst. And then in 2004, I saw that whole run-up of the market. But it, again, taught me that people invested. They invested with me because they knew me, liked me, trusted me, not because I was 24 years old. They didn't really care about my age. They trusted me. I got the knowledge first, and then I was aggressive as shit in acquiring customers, acquiring clients. But you're just right. When you just said I had no control, I had to jump in, because I felt the same dang way. When the market crashed in 01, I had no control. When the market was running up in 04, 05, 06, I had no control. When the market was crashing in 08, no control, right? Over the stock market, because it just moves based on emotion. It doesn't even move based on real numbers.
We don't even know why it moves, right? No one knows. Right. And so, man, what happened was I got depressed, because these people were coming in counting on me as their advisor, and I'm wanting to do a good job, and there's nothing I can do. And then I have to move and charge them a fee to move their money, because they're like, no, I don't care what it is, move it to something safer. And I'm like, well, then we got to charge you a fee. And my heart left the business. As soon as your heart leaves anything, it's not a good sign. And so my sales went way down.
Right. You just
And then I
can't
went
get
to the office
motivated
one
for it.
day.
If you don't have passion for it, you're not going to do it, right? It's just,
Exactly.
you're going to let it slow bleed out, right? And it happens all the time.
Yep.
My newest and most powerful real estate investing book, The Flip System, is now available. And for a limited time, you can grab your free copy at getflipsystem.com/podcast. Using the same proven principles, secrets, and investing strategies I'm sharing in this book, I've been able to personally close over 750 highly profitable real estate deals over the last 15 years, make over 400 private lender loans, raise over $30 million of private money, and acquire over 2,000 units of apartments. Get my newest book now for free for a limited time at getflipsystem.com/podcast. That's getflipsystem.com/podcast.
And so I actually go in my office one day at 8 o'clock in the morning. I have a meeting at 10 with my manager. And when I show up at 8 o'clock, my secretary can't look at me. And I know that I'm done. Like I'm getting chopped.
Yeah.
And you know when your numbers are down. And so for 2 hours, first thing I did was print a client list, put it in my truck.
Yeah,
Okay.
of course. Good move. Would have done the same
The
thing.
second thing I did was I sat in my office and I was like, what am I going to do? Because I got to come home with a plan because we still need my money, right? Like I'm making money and we need it as a family. And I remember in that office, I honestly, in the quietness of that four walls, I made the deep down, most gut-wrenching everything that I am, because I wanted to do real estate. I really wanted to be like Bruce. I was just being a financial advisor so I could make money to go buy properties.
Right.
And so I made the biggest commitment, besides being married to my wife, that I was going to do whatever it took to be successful in real estate. And I left that at 10 o'clock. I got fired, and I felt like Rocky. And, that lasted for like 2 minutes, because then I had to go home and tell the wife.
Yeah.
And so when I go tell Shelly what I'm going to do, I'm like, I'm going to do real estate. I'm going to do it full time, and I'm going to win. And she's like looking at me saying, all right, okay. All right. And she believed in me, though. She believed in me.
Yeah.
But she's like, don't fail. Because what was on the line was everything. My wife, my kids.
Everything.
They say money doesn't, listen, if you run out of money, like that's how marriages get divorced. That's
Yeah,
just,
Corey. I mean, I see how you honor your wife in social media, on Facebook, and I can tell the reason for that is probably because of what you're about to tell me about the time when you decided to jump into real estate, and she supported you, right, over this last 17-year journey. But I see how you honor her and talk about her when you're together, the pictures that you take on the bikes and on vacations. It's amazing because you made this pivot. You knew you wanted to do it. She believed in you. You had this conversation, right? I'm about to go into real estate full time. So what happens next?
Man, she just said, listen, I believe in you, which just gave me confidence, right? Now, so then I'm like, okay, what do I have? Well, Jones had taught me how to network, so I started going to REIAs, Real Estate Investors Associations. And listen, I wasn't even a realtor, didn't have a real estate license. I just jumped in and said, I don't care what it is. I'm just going to get in and get full-fledged in activity. And so what I was smart about, though, was when I went to the REIA meeting, I said to the guy that's holding the meeting, hey, I'm new here. Can you show me some of the players? And because, they know their room. And he said, well, that guy, that guy, that guy. So guess who I sat next to?
Yeah.
The players. And I'm like, hey, where do you like to do your rehabs, your single family fix and flips? What is it like? How much rehab do you like? And I'm making them give me their custom detail of what a deal looks like. And I'm like, man, you wouldn't believe this, but I find deals just like that all the time. Would you buy one for me if I found it and it looked like that? They said, yeah. And I said, great. And so then I went to work. And then I had to be resourceful. I didn't have a real estate license. So I found a realtor. And I'm like, hey, listen, I need your login and passcode. You're not going to want to do all the work that I'm going to have to do, but I'll let you write up the contract. Cool? And they're like, yeah, no problem. And so, dude, I started wholesaling, and I started getting in the game of real estate. I was finding deals and wholesaling them to these wealthy guys out of Salt Lake, and they paid me $3,000 a deal. And it was awesome. And but I was really wanting to do, like, these guys were making $30,000 rips, and I was making $3,000.
Yeah, Bruce didn't get rich with a house on Hawaii on $3,000 commission, right?
Exactly. So I'm like, I got to figure out how to raise private money. And I raised my first piece of private money by accident. It's a great story. I'm playing racquetball with one of my ex-clients. His name's, well, I will not say his name. But anyways, he's retired. He lives in a retirement community. And he didn't have really any extra money per se, because he had a bunch of assets that were already working. So I was asking him for his help. And I said, hey, listen, and his name was, we'll call him Carl. Carl, hey, listen, you live in this retirement community. Who do you know out there that could maybe help me out? Because, like, if I could just get like $100,000, I could probably give him a note and deed of trust, and I can do these deals on my own. And so he's like, well, yeah, I'll see what I can do. Well, the next day, Carl calls me up. He's like, hey, Corey, do you still want to do that, 12%? He goes, I'm like, yeah. And I'm like thinking, man, Carl found somebody for me. And Carl's like, Corey, you don't know this, but my home's totally paid for. I can borrow money at 3%. If you pay me 12, I can make a spread. How much money do you need? And this is where you're like, Carl, I need $85,000. And there was a small pause, and he's like, okay. Where do you want me to send it? And just like that, I raised, $85,000. But I learned a lot from Carl.
Dang, I should have asked for 200.
Yep. So what I learned is, in the early on, is you never ask people for money. You only ask, who do they know?
Yes.
And it's really been golden for me. Because once you take the pressure away, and I was because then most people will critically look at what you're hey, listen, I think you could give me some referrals to some people that you know. Would you mind looking at my business plan and poking some holes in it? Because if you don't understand it, no one else is going to.
Right.
And they're not going to refer you by asking them if they could poke holes, and it gives them a little bit of a position of strength and power to be able to say, yeah, for sure, I'll take a look at your business plan. Yeah. But then when they look at it, they're like, wow, well, first of all, I'm not going to refer you a bunch of people unless I know what the heck you're doing, right? So it gives them another way to create more of a relationship with you and more of a connection to you. Then when they say, like, wow, this is a great business plan, it's like, well, why wouldn't I invest in this? Right?
They self-select.
Right.
They raise their hand and say, what about me? What about me? And that's exactly what Carl did. And so I realized that was the formula, is never ask people for money. Just show the business plan. Tell as many people as you can, and the right people self-select.
Yeah.
And so I went crazy with it. Once I realized that if you had a credibility kit before and after, and this was doing single family homes, I was just doing before and afters, pictures. Here's what the property looks like before. Here's what I did afterwards, and here's how much money I made. I raised millions of dollars in a short, within a year. I had about $3 million of capital on the street.
Nice.
That's moving, dude, right? So once I figured out the formula, and honestly, I like to say it was like this, man, that was like a Clark Kent moment where I went into the telephone booth as Clark Kent. And when I raised that piece of private money, I spun around and I was like, I raised private money,
Yeah. That is awesome.
It broke every limiting belief that I ever had. Because, I was a poor, small, farm boy that, was a used car salesman that filed bankruptcy before and didn't have, all the things, right?
Right.
But it didn't matter. But I had good deals and I had a good business plan, and people wanted to give me money.
Yeah, your past is not a determination or a determining factor in your future unless you harp on it, unless you tell yourself, that's who I am. That used car salesman is who I am today. As soon as you break the pattern and say, what I was is not who I'm going to become, what I was is not who I am. It was interesting. I was at Tony Robbins' Unleash the Power Within, and he talks about the real science of the human body, which I thought this just totally stuck out to me. So I wanted to bring this up for a sec. He said, within every 2 years, every single cell in your body, every single cell that makes up your skin, your eyeballs, your brain, every single organ, every single cell has regenerated. So every 2 years, literally, although your body might look the same, every single cell is different. And so people harp on, I thought that was so powerful, man, because I thought if you literally think like, well, because I made this mistake 5 years ago, or I filed bankruptcy 10 years ago, or I went through a divorce 2 years ago, or I had a business that didn't work, or a client that lost money, and you live there and you focus on it, then that's who you are. But your brain is putting you there because your actual physical body every 2 years is totally new and different. Amen. So it all comes down to the mind, right? Just to be able to tell yourself.
It's mindset.
Absolutely,
oh my God.
Absolutely, buddy.
So now so here comes my fork in the road, another little right hook. I'm doing well. I'm making money. I'm flipping homes. But now I am actually letting work overwhelm me to the point where my son looks at me and says, "Dad, will you be at my game Saturday?" "No problem, son. I'll be there." But inside I was like, man, I got to look at 3 properties because I didn't get them on Friday. So I'm like, I'll wake up early in the morning Saturday and I'll do these studies and I'll make it in time for the game. And long story short is I came at the very end. And my son came off the field crying. And he said, "Dad, you promised." And I'm telling you, man, it's hard to even tell this story because, it broke me. My son's, that kind of sobbing, like, "You promised, Dad." And I heard him. I was like, what am I doing chasing money? My wife's, my son gets in the car with me, even, I drove, jumps, and that made it worse because I'm driving him home and and he's just trying to hold it, but he still loves me because he's in my truck, not mom's car. Yeah. And I'm just thinking to myself, Corey, you are failing as a dad right now. This is not what I wanted to do or who I am. And it was one of my deepest lows as a human being to think, why am I doing this? Like, why did I put money in front of my kids? Right. And so I drop them off, and I actually, my wife's like gives me that look, like, you better make this right.
Yeah, look, you better. We've all gotten the look from the wife, right? Just the stare.
Yeah, man.
Like, oh man, I gotta make this right.
I jump in my truck and I'm driving around, dude, and I'm actually I'm calling myself, "You stupid SOB. You how can you do this? Why would you ever do this?" And I'm just physically beating myself up. And finally, I come and I get some grace, and I pray to God and I ask forgiveness, and I finally forgive myself. And I'm in this really calm state of mind, and then this is what happens, and it's crazy, man. I drive by this apartment complex, and I've driven by it 1,000,000 times, and I used to say, I wish I could own an apartment complex. And in that moment, I said, how can I own an apartment complex?
Yeah, instead of I wish, it's
and
how
as soon as I did, my mind went to work, and all of a sudden I flashed back to Bruce. Bruce had time and money. He was living that lifestyle, and I knew that this was the vehicle. This was, and I did a U-turn. I went to Barnes & Nobles. Now we just go on our phones. So I went to Barnes & Nobles, right? And I bought every book I could on multifamily investing. And of course, the last one I read was called Apartments to Millions by Dave Lindahl, and I understood it, and I found a mentor, and then I just got educated in multi. I'm like, this is the way. I bought my first apartment complex in 2011. I raised $1.4 million of private money. I owned that property for 5 years. I sold it. I bought it for $3.2 million. I sold it, I think, 3 years ago for $8.8 million.
Fantastic.
$4.7 million net profit. And that one deal changed my life forever. Now we own like 7 or 8 apartment complexes. We have $95 million in assets. But I'm telling you, if you believe it, you can achieve it. And I just put myself in motion. And it's really through all my failures. I've always been willing to fail. I think you have to be willing to fail in business to succeed.
And I think it's about learning. It's about the knowing that we don't know it all. We're not going to know it all. It's never perfect. Business is like a playground. I've said this on stages. I've said this in my podcast and talked to my students about it, that business is a playground, and you only get knocked out of the playground. Like, if you're playing tag on the playground and you get tagged and you're out, you got to sit on the side, like on the railroad tie, and you got to sit to wait for the game to start over. In business, you only get knocked out and get tagged and have to sit out if mentally you tag yourself and sit out. Because I've seen guys go through bankruptcy. I've seen guys go through divorce. I've seen guys get totally wiped out. And as long as they have the capacity to get back up and start again and start to work on deals and plug themselves in somehow and mastermind, get mentorship, they can start all over again. I've met guys that have lost $1 million of other people's money in real estate deals and gotten right back up and made the money back, paid everybody back every nickel they owed them, and are wildly successful. And now they have that amazing hero's journey of success.
Yeah.
And the only difference between that guy and the guy that got knocked out because he lost 10 grand on his first rehab is because the guy that lost 10 grand on his first rehab tagged himself and removed himself from the game. It's the only difference.
It's horrible. It's horrible when people do that, because if you only knew how good it is. I mean, I'm living the lifestyle now that, I mean, I love my life. I love my business. I love the time and freedom that it gives you. And I, you know, like my wife was there the whole time. She was my biggest cheerleader. And I always say, like, when I made these mistakes and money mistakes and lost money, my wife was there to mend me and kind of, you know, get me all fixed up and mend my wounds, and with her songs of praise and her words of wisdom, and really just, you know, kind of put me back together. And then she would kick me out the door and say, go get him.
Go.
You're my guy. You're my man, right? Like, you can do this. And really, that's the resiliency. And sometimes, you know, not everybody's married and has that type of relationship, but you can find it other places. You can find it in masterminds, mentorships, right? You go, that's why you get plugged in, because you got to find like-minded people that think the same way, because the power of your brain is so valuable, and you have to keep it, like you just said, plugged in.
Yeah.
Because if you tag yourself, that's game over, man.
It's it. And often it just takes one accountability partner, one person. Like, I was in the gym yesterday morning, and my son Dominic is in second grade. He plays football with his little buddy, you know, flag football with his little buddy Carson. And Dominic and Carson have battled. Like, they're both really strong personalities. They're both bigger kids. They're both competing. You know how second grade boys are.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, Carson's dad is in the gym, and we're down in the locker room chit-chatting, and we're talking about getting up and getting moving, and he's 45 years old, and he's in really good shape. And I'm like, dude, like, what are you doing to stay in shape? He's like, man, I'm in the pool. And then he tells me, he says, you know, Josh, why I get in the pool? He's a pilot. He flies for, I think, Continental. He flies mostly weekends. But he's like, you know why I get in the pool is because I have a buddy of mine who lives in Denver. Now, Dale lives in Cleveland. His buddy lives in Denver. And he's like, you know what? My buddy told me, he's 50 years old. My buddy told me he swam 80 laps yesterday. A 50-year-old, 80 laps. And he's like, so now I got to get in the pool, and I got to do it because he's my accountability partner. Your accountability partner, Corey, was your wife, Shelly, right? She's like, you can do it. You got it. You're my man. Go. I got you. I believe in you. That's all you need sometimes is one person, right? And if you don't have it, sometimes you got to pay for it. You got to buy it through coaching or a mentor or a mastermind if you don't have somebody in your ecosystem that believes in you and that can hold you accountable. When I was in my late 20s, I wanted to get in really good shape. I hired my buddy Mike Tucherone to become my personal trainer. Now, Mike was a close friend of mine. I could have said, hey, Mike, let's work out together. But instead, I started cutting Mike checks for $600 every 6 weeks. And then, sure as heck, I was in the gym 3 times a week with Mike. I was working extra. I was eating healthier because I knew Mike was going to check my body fat, and I had to cut a check to Mike. It meant something, even if it was only $600. It meant something to be accountable to him. So, being accountable to Shelly is a huge part of it, and you don't have somebody, you got to seek that out, whether it's a mastermind or mentorship or some group. But don't make it a group. Like, even if you are in a group, find one person that you can have a little bit closer connection with, right?
I couldn't agree more. I think it really is. I can think of about 2 or 3 real mentors in my life that honestly made the fork. You know, the fork in the road was that fork. You can just that person, and that person change me. Right? Yeah. Bruce was the first one, even though he didn't teach me, but he gave me the vision of what it looked like. And you know, here's what's funny is we may be buying that house.
Yeah.
Just to go full circle with it.
Nice.
It's on the market right now for like $3.5 million, or I don't know, $4 million or something like that. So we're going to take a run at it, see if we can complete the story.
Are you ready to automate and explode your real estate investing? We're searching for extremely motivated individuals who are sick and tired of wasting time and want to finally see real results from their real estate investing business. We're searching for investors looking to get to the next level and become a bigger, better version of themselves while being a more successful real estate investing entrepreneur. Apply for mentoring and coaching at joshcantwellcoaching.com/podcast. That's joshcantwellcoaching.com/podcast. There you go. That's fantastic. So, Corey, let me ask you a couple questions specifically about multifamily.
Yep.
Why don't more investors consider multifamily? Why do you think so many guys take your path? And I took the same path, starting with single family, and then leveling up over time. And some people never level up into multifamily, but why don't more people consider it right out of the gate?
Man, I just think that they just don't know how good it is. We all read Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Robert always talked about cash flow.
No doubt.
And somehow a lot of us translated that into, well, I've got no money and I can't do a big deal. So they just said, well, I'll do single family. And then they get stuck because they get in a rut, and that's kind of their deal. And what they end up is they're just a business owner. They're just in the B quadrant. They never make it into the I quadrant, which is the investor. Because when you do this business, right, in multifamily, you get to become the investor. You get to manage. It's a little bit of both, because eventually my money is working in my deals, and I'm really getting passive income for not doing a hell of a lot of work. And I wish, my hope is that more people would understand it, right? Because it's life changing once you get and realize the power of cash flow.
Yeah, it's funny. I never hear, Corey, anybody say, I hear people get into single family and then they say, it's too much work, or I didn't make enough profit, or I didn't make enough money, or I was just wholesaling and I got out of it. It's funny. I don't think I've ever heard a multifamily investor that made the jump into multifamily who said that was a dumb idea. I wish I would have never done that. I was so stupid. I can't believe I got into multifamily and I'm out. Nobody does that.
No. And and I think it's a different mentality too, because when you play the multifamily game, you're conditioning yourself to play the long game anyways. And a lot of times, I'll go in a deal where I'm not going to make any money for a whole year. My plan, my business plan is the GP will not make some money for maybe 1 or 2 years until we get the thing turned around. And that's totally acceptable, because we are playing a very long game that pays us time and time again when done right. So it's you get some acquisition fees to help, pay for these things, but it's not like you're getting the cash flow always right away. Sometimes you got to do a lot of work first. Not always. Some deals you can make money right away with the day you buy it, but most of us are conditioned to say, well, that'll be okay. That's not going to change my lifestyle, or I'm not counting on this today money because I'm looking for tomorrow money.
Yeah. Yeah, so Corey, when it comes to investing, most people, obviously you can sit on 2 seats, right? But within those seats, there's a couple options. There's the active side and the passive side. So you, as an active investor looking for deal flow, what are some of your strategies or tips to be a more successful active investor?
To ask brokers. Now, I believe in going straight to brokers. Most of the time we just go to brokers, but to invest in broker relations. In other words, find out what they like to do for fun. When I'm really in a market and I want to get to know the brokers, I want to start taking them lunch and going out to dinner and getting to know who they are, and I should be knowing their kids, their family life, what they like to do for fun. Are they, a football guy? Do they like to shoot guns? And then that's where I lead the conversation always. If they're Harley guys, man, I'm in, dude. We can talk Harleys all the time. Yeah. But that becomes my open, and really just, I'll give you an example. I'm a Bob Ross fan. I love Two Hairs and Some Air, right? And one of my students came in and she brought me a little Bob Ross tree ornament. And I thought, man, how cool is that?
Right.
And that's and so do those types of things for your brokers, and you'll create relationships. And guess what? They'll want to feed you good, solid deals. And that's how it's unfair. It's an unfair advantage. When you get brokers know, like, and trust you, and they believe that you'll perform, you can get deals before other people.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the key, right? Just to be in the game, to get in the game, get a seat at the table. Then, of course, the relationship matters. But now it's going to come down to letter of intent, offer, structure,
all that. Yep,
all that kind of stuff. But you got to get a
closing.
seat at the table. And we all know that multifamily, the world is not that big, and the community, the ecosystem is not that big. And to get a seat at the table is really the start to get to even look at the deal flow, because so much of it is off market. It's off of LoopNet. It's off of CoStar. It's not there. And if they're there in this market, it's probably not a great deal. Corey, what about on the passive side? So switch hats to the other seat. What are some things that you're doing, you talk to your students about, that you're just doing successfully on the passive side to be a successful passive investor, because you invest passively, but also for recruiting capital?
Yeah. Now, I'm actually probably really different than a lot of investors out there. We do a 6 pref and 6% on the back end. So our investors will only ever make 12% return, which I believe is pretty low in the marketplace. At least that's what people tell me.
Only 12? Like 12 is a hell of a return, man. It's pretty good.
Well, I think 12 is great, right? So, and what I found is that here's what I believe, that now we fish in really good ponds. So I would say there's lots of places you can go fishing for money. But if you'll go find, like, I want dumb money, but not dumb people, right? I want smart people that have dumb money. I call dumb money anything that's in the stock market. Right, for lack of a better term. And because I feel like I can compete really well with the stock market all the time. We can provide consistent cash flow and some back end return on the back end for our investors. And what I found that when we're talking with a retired person, truly they want an income stream. I just talked with a guy today. I just raised $100,000. He gave me $100,000 on another deal, and he gave me, and it was like we had a 5-minute conversation about the new deal. But we were talking about the reason he loved working with us is because we were consistent. We were consistent in our reporting, in our communication. We actually told him how we were going to communicate, and then we communicated exactly the way we told them. That's important, and a lot of investors don't do it that way, I don't think, or they don't put an importance of that. But you have to consistently do what you say you're going to do.
Yeah, getting the money is important, but it's in the follow through, right? It's like when I see a lot of people on Facebook, and rightly so, they say, "I bought this building, now the real work begins." And because that's true, right? Getting the deal is part of it. It's work, but now the real work begins in the value add and the stabilization. It's the same thing with passive investors, right, Corey? So getting the money is the fun part, creating the relationship, earning their trust. But once they actually wired you or ACH'd you a couple $100,000, now the real work begins, and you can't discount the fact that they've wired you the money and take them for granted and not give them reports, not communicate with them, not give them what they want, or if they call, not call them back quickly. The real work begins when you've accepted the money, and the truth is, if you take the money, now you have not only a legal obligation, a fiduciary responsibility to them, but they have more money, and if you do a good job of reporting and consistency, they're going to invest more and tell you to all their friends.
Listen, no one comes in on your first deal with a lot of money. They usually do your minimum. Like our minimum is $100,000, so people will give us $100,000. And once they do that, and then they get into our communication process, and we do what we say we're going to do, what happens is all of a sudden they're like, "Wow, that's what I wanted." Now all of a sudden they'll open up $300,000-$400,000 shows up on the next deal. And because one thing, and you know this as being a financial advisor, money is everywhere. Money is looking for people like us, syndicators, that know and how to make it grow. And they're really I like to say, we're just an alternative to the stock market. That's what we do. We provide consistent, and we're money managers. That's what we're doing.
That's right.
And we do it through the vehicle of, we do it through multifamily apartments. That's our vehicle of choice that we know and understand, that we know how to make it grow.
That's fantastic.
And it's a beautiful thing.
So, Corey, you run an organization, your Kahuna boardroom, you have trainings and mastermind events. People have the opportunity to connect with you. I definitely want to make sure that they connect with you through this podcast. Tell us a little bit more about there. How can they get more information about that?
Yeah, one of the best ways to learn more about what we do and just our teaching is just go to our podcast, Multifamily Legacy Podcast. It's on anywhere you find podcasts. But also our education site is called Kahuna Wealth Builders, and that's just where we have. There's a free quick start workshop series where we can teach you some, basically our beginner stuff that's for free, and we'd love to get to know you there.
That's fantastic. And Corey, I wanted to ask you as we kind of round third here and head for home. Investing in real estate it's your niche, it's your business, but everybody, whether they're in e-com, whether they're in digital marketing, whether they're in real estate, they're entrepreneurs. They're building a business. So what hacks or habits, routines, books, what things have you done that you enjoy the most about your entrepreneurial journey? What things have you invested in, or what hacks or habits are you doing that you think have had the biggest impact on you as an entrepreneur? Not necessarily in real estate, but you personally as an entrepreneur. Are there one or two or three things that stand out that have really helped you grow up as an entrepreneur and continue to be successful?
Yeah. So two things that I think I've done this, like in the last probably 3 or 4 years, that really gave me one book. So Richest Man of Babylon, my favorite book. 1/10 of everything I make is mine to keep. Let's talk about being good money manager. But the other thing, one of the things I did early on in my business is I invested in what I call business assets, digital business assets. And I can't stress this enough, because your business is your face of your company, and you need to have professional images. I didn't realize how important having professional images are, but in this digital world that we are in, it is vitally important. So I hired not just a good camera guy, but an excellent camera guy that created really nice, images of me and my company and our business. And then I also added some video stuff too, some really high-end quality videos and testimonials and things like that. I really saw the investment pay off like tenfold, because people are visual learners, and we have the power of YouTube, Facebook, and all those things. And so to tell a visual story is very important in today's world.
That's fantastic. Yeah, no doubt about it. I mean, we make, I think as a society now, we're making snap judgments about people and organizations and products and brands simply based off of their branding, the imagery, the photos and the videos. And they won't even listen to the audio portion of a commercial, or the audio portion of a YouTube clip, or the audio portion of even a podcast, until with their eyes they say, I like the image, I like the video, I like whatever that is, I want to learn more.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other part of that too is another thing is just something I've done from the very beginning of my is teach what you know. Be a teacher. Teach what you know, no matter if it's a little, teach it, right? Always have one hand down, pulling someone else, up, that's a little farther down the rung than you, and have another hand up of grabbing someone that's a little higher than you. And that's the continuum. Never stop being a teacher, never stop being, the student. I've done it all my life, and I believe it served me well.
That's fantastic. Well, there you have it. Corey Peterson from Kahuna Wealth Builders and the Kahuna Boardroom. Corey, thanks so much for joining us today on Accelerated Investor.
Thanks, brother.
You've been listening to Josh Cantwell and the Accelerated Investor Podcast. Leave a comment on our iTunes channel and let us know what you want to learn next, or who you'd like Josh to interview. While you're there, give us a 5-star rating and make sure to subscribe so you can be the first to hear new episodes. Follow Josh Cantwell and his companies, Strategic Real Estate Coach and Freeland Ventures, on all social media platforms now, and stay up to date on new training and investment opportunities to start your journey toward the lifestyle you've always dreamed of. Apply for coaching at joshcantwellcoaching.com.